Everybody, welcome to the Sci-Fi Sistas podcast, where we give you our point of view. We're proud members of the Trek Geeks podcast network, and we are here today to bring you a great show. I'm Tamia Harper, and I'm joined today by my sisters, Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
Subrina Wood.
Whoop, whoop.
And Fran T.
As always, what's happening?
What's happening, Fran? What's happening is that we got a great show because we got all my sisters and me together, and we're going to talk about, I know, right? It's been so long, right?
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. It feels good. Reunited. Okay.
We're paying somebody in a minute.
Nope. I said one word.
Dose is shaking his head.
So today, the topic of the show, we wanted to do something that spoke to us. So the topic of our show today is our little geeky origin stories, our personal geek origin stories. What sparked the flame for us? When did we realize that this was our jam, that we were little geeks, like straight through and through? So we're going way back into our childhood. And we're going to talk. Yeah, see, there she goes again. Say that again, Fran.
I say some of us further than others.
Well, yeah, you're older than me. So.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
That's life.
Yeah, that's right.
It's better than alternative.
Isn't it? I've said that.
So we're going to be talking about what were the things that really sparked our first love of science fiction and fantasy or fantasy, so because I know for me what it was one, it was not all of the above. But who wants to go first?
You're the youngest, you go first.
I don't want to go first.
Yeah,
fine.
The youngest.
Well, we're gonna take it in that order. We're going to go youngest to oldest. Are we playing that game today? That's fine.
We don't have to. I just said that.
I know. She's so special. All right, fine. I'll go first. So my geeky life started when I learned how to read well. Like, I was not a great reader. And then my parents got me a tutor when I was in second grade. And next thing you know, ever since then, I've had a book in my hands. Like, I've never been known up until recent life to ever be without a book since then. And one of the first books that changed my whole perception of everything, Subrina, you named it the other day, was Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah, buddy.
It was like, it just, I didn't know that anything could be so magical and so wonderful and take me on this journey to a completely other place, like this whole world that I just didn't know. And I'd never read anything that hit me like that, and I could really relate to those characters in the book so much. And I mean, it just switched something in my head, and I was like, and I just went looking for more like that.
Right.
And if it was mundane and realistic and set in this world, I was immediately bored.
Yeah.
The Bobbsey twins didn't do it to you?
No, the Bobbsey twins, and people, trust me, people gave me Nancy Drew, they gave me Bobbsey twins, they gave me all the stuff to read, and I was like, yep, nope, bored.
Nancy was okay. I wasn't into Nancy Drew, but the Bobbsey twins and all that was like, wow.
But then somebody gave me a Sherlock Holmes compendium.
True.
And I was all about that. like, I guess it's like really, again, for me, it's lands far away or distant lands or things really different from my daily reality.
Yeah.
And that's where I love to be when I'm in my own head, when I have time. Like, I'm tired of this world often.
Mhm.
And I think I was like that from a little girl. Like, I have a lot, I absorb a lot of other people's stuff all the
Mm.
time.
Mm.
And I think as a little girl, you don't have the vocabulary to understand what's going on or the tools to know how to put up boundaries, right?
Right,
I
right.
get that. Yeah.
And adults are around you bombarding you with stuff, right? And I've always been very sensitive and pretty emotional. So books were like, once I found A Wrinkle in Time, I found an escape.
Mm.
And I
So
think, huh?
how about how old were you when you read it?
I've been trying to remember that. I think I might have been about 10, maybe,
So fifth grade?
about there,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think I
Mm,
was like in the fourth grade when I read A Wrinkle in Time. And it was just, Meg Murray. Number one, it had a female
right,
protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Come
Mm-hmm.
on,
A
Mm-hmm.
young girl,
a young
even
girl.
though she was a young white girl, like she was a young girl. Like at
I
that time,
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't care. I
wasn't
was
even
reading that.
seeing white, black. I'm like, she was a
Right.
Nope.
young girl.
Right.
I
Hmm.
knew all the emotions that she was going through. Oh, the only one that I could read that was realistic was Judy Blume.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Judy
Yeah.
Blume.
Yeah.
But
Judy
outside
Bloom.
of that, forget about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was our
Anyway,
generation. I think
yeah,
Gotta
everybody
give
in
her
our
a pass.
generation
Give her a pass.
yeah,
read Judy
yeah.
So
Bloom.
I knew you were gonna say Wrinkle in Time only because we prepare for this show. We don't
Right.
just do this off the cuff, people. So did you know that she was rejected by 26 publishers? So all you
Wow.
writers out there, everybody that's thinking of writing, if you've got one or two rejection slips, keep going.
Hmm.
She got
Mm-hmm.
rejected 26 times, and they told her, for example, this is a quote from her, that it was too different and that it overtly dealt with the problems of evil and the kids wouldn't understand it.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
When
And
was this written?
1962 it came out.
Oh yeah, well,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I was about 6 when it came out, and I think I read it, maybe 2, 3 years later. I remember a librarian gave it to me.
Mm.
So all
Wow.
you Stephanie people, the
Yep.
librarian I remember her handing it to me. I can remember the cover. I used to be one of those library kids that had to sit in the library and wait for my mother to get off work. And the librarian knew the situation. And I had a little brother like, Charles Lawrence. What was the kid's name? Charles Wallace.
Charles Wallace. Yep.
Yeah, so she was looking for her. She was with a little brother. So he and I were always together. And that Wrinkle in Time, like you, man,
Hmm.
it was like, what is the Tesseract? They were talking about quantum
That's where I
theory.
learned the
That
word
was, yeah,
tesseract.
yes. What?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Tesseract.
That word has been with me since I was 10 years old, thanks to
Yep.
Madeline L'Engle.
Mm-hmm. So when they started throwing it around recently, we were like, oh, we've been knowing about Tesseract.
Right.
I have to read this book. I don't know
You
why I never
do?
read this book.
I've never read it.
Neither have I.
Really?
No.
No.
I mean,
I
I've
mean,
heard about
Oh,
it,
sure.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I didn't think it was like that.
it was a deep book. I mean, and
Yeah.
it dealt with it dealt with loss in so many ways. It dealt with change and people not being the people closest to you not being who you expect them to be, or doing something extremely painful and hurtful to you, like betrayal. It dealt with betrayal. I mean, it was really a cool,
It's,
a really great
it's a
book. And
lot.
yeah, it
Hmm.
Did
was
you
a
see
lot
the
to do with. And she didn't talk down,
Right.
that was the thing. You're reading something that um really felt like, where the rest of the world would, like you were a worthy human being, worthy of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
When the rest of
Did
the
you
Yeah.
world
see the
always talked
movie?
down.
I did.
Yeah,
I raced to see the movie.
Mm.
I was
I, w-
okay. I was okay with the movies, but
yeah, I was like,
It was
I wasn't
okay.
like,
Okay.
ooh, the
hmm.
movie. Like, no, it's all about the book for me. And
Mm.
the
Okay.
reason that it being that, because like, you know, books leave so much room for your imagination to
Yeah.
work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I don't like everything spelled out for me in a
Handed
movie
to
all the
you.
time. Sometimes my imagination is so much better than what people come up with that they want me to look at.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Although I
Yeah.
thought the young woman that played Meg did a great job.
Yeah, I
I
thought she
really
did a
did think
great
she did.
job,
I think she did a great job.
but
And she had a lot on her shoulders in that movie.
I was underwhelmed by that movie overall. And I
Mhm.
thought like the VFX, like I was like,
It
I
was
mean,
so much
and
better in my mind.
it was a lot better in
Mm.
my mind. Like I really didn't need to
I
see
gotta
any of
read this
that.
book.
Yeah, I'm gonna read. I
Yeah.
have to read this book. Yeah.
It
Oh, wow.
made my little child heart so happy,
Hmm.
and because it was, like I said, because it provided me space. And so after that, like I was always looking for that different world,
Mm.
and I remember like I have more than one, so, and we have time, so I'm gonna go.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm,
and I remember because there's a straight trajectory from that moment in my
right.
childhood to when I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe
Mm.
by
Yes.
C.S. Lewis.
Hmm.
And that book filled me with awe. And I think the character of Aslan, and I did not make the connections, the Judeo-Christian connections at
You're
all.
right.
I mean, I was a child. Like
Right.
I didn't care
Exactly.
about that. I was being told a fantastical tale. Like adults have this capacity to just ruin so much fun.
Mhm.
We
Same thing
really
with A Wrinkle in
do.
Time. That one gets challenged all the time on.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's just fun for criminy's sake. Like,
Mhm.
let a kid just read it
Mhm.
and give them other shit to read too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just don't let that be the
Only
anyway.
right. Right. I'll tell you
Anyway.
one thing.
So what?
After A Lion, a Witch in the Wardrobe, my mother had a big, big wardrobe where she kept like all the winter coats and furs and everything. And I used to like to sit in
Mm.
there
Mm.
because it smelled like her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when she would be
Mm.
gone for a long time, at work or something, no, a long time, like when you're a little kid, it's like all day.
Hmm.
She would find me in the bottom of that closet. But after I read that book, I never went in there again.
Really, I went into the wardrobes constantly looking for
For
Narnia.
Narnia.
No, I did not want to go.
I wanted to go to Narnia so bad. Oh my God, I was always in the bottom of a closet, like hoping that I could get to Narnia or the Secret Garden or something,
Yeah,
you know?
Secret
okay.
Garden. Yeah.
I wish I was the same age as you and we were like friends and we could have
I
been reading them
know.
together. We're like
I
15 years
know.
apart, and I'm like, I need to go back in time.
And you
I
were
need to
up in
fold
Boston, and
time.
I was doing this down in DC and Newport News, Virginia.
And we were
And
reading the same daggone books.
yep. And like so, like yeah. So then there was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that's when like it was firmly cemented that
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to be in this magical world. And then when I was a teenager, the one of the most formative books for me, like that really sent my geek heart, sent me really racing down the epic fantasy tunnel was The Mists of Avalon by Marion
Mm.
Zimmer
Oh,
Bradley.
Yes.
that's
Yes, I
about
know, right?
that's
Yes.
about all
Why
the
are you
women,
not my
right?
Yes.
sister?
That's
Oh,
from the
Really?
women's
it's the
that
telling of King Arthur's court from the perspective of
women's
the women.
a co-worker, a co-worker gave me, she said, Fran, you would really like this. Let me
Hmm.
give you this. I'm like, what are you talking about? She gave me the book and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
because like I don't know why well, after I read it, I realized why she gave it to me. She gave it to
Hmm.
me as a gift and said, you would love this
Yeah.
book. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it. And it was fantastic.
It
I
Oh,
was
loved
fantastic.
it.
And it still stands the test of time as one of
Yes.
my all-time favorite books, period. End of discussion. I still have my original copy sitting right here on this bookshelf right next to me.
wow. I
Like,
don't know what happened to mine, but that was the book.
It
uh,
was the bomb, wasn't it? Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Because I saw like this whole, I had been reading all this fantasy up until that point, and it was all these white men telling the fantasies, right? Except for Wrinkle in Time. And then I had read some Ursula Le Guin, but I was too young to understand her. Like I didn't get it. I had to go back to it. So Marion Zimmer Bradley took this whole story, turned it right on its head. I was like, it was a whole different perspective, and it was all these women driving the fate of this kingdom, and I mean, I was never the same again.
Wow.
It
I
was
was never
amazing.
the same again.
Yes. Yeah.
She said yes.
Yes, right? I mean, it's just like that. It's awe-inspiring.
You have to see the look that I'm looking at. I've never read this book, but these three women, I wish we were on the live show so people can see your faces. You all look like little girls right now. Just so it was the best day ever.
So awesome.
I wondered, I was a grown woman when this woman gave me this book. And I'm like, why did you give me this book?
Wow.
I was definitely an adult when I read that book. I was definitely, I don't know when it came out actually, but I was an adult when it came out. But I mean, everybody was reading it.
I think it was 82. Let me look it up.
82. Yeah, that would make sense. I was working.
Okay. No, originally published 1982. Yep.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't in college or anything like that.
Right.
But everybody was reading it. It was a very popular book when it came out. It wasn't just for geeks. Like everybody was. A lot of women were reading. People were on the subway. Mr. Avalon. Oh my God, girl! You were like,
yeah, that's crazy. And like, so I read it as a teenager, and then I remember constantly looking for that again. And so subsequently, George R.R. Martin. When I did not care about Game of Thrones. Like it didn't hold a candle to Marion Zimmer Bradley in any way, and the Tolkien I went through a Tolkien phase.
Went through that, yeah.
And I read all the Tolkien stuff, and I think more of that was just being in love with the world.
Yeah.
Not like any deep storytelling or being in love with any characters. I never connected with a single damn character in Tolkien. Like it was just like, oh, it's a cool world, and then so from Marion Zimmer Bradley, the most impactful after that was Octavia Butler, and then she changed my world again. So that's my geek origin story, my geek story. I mean, as far as it was all due to fantasy. Science fiction was on sometimes. Star Trek was on for sure, and I loved it, but I wasn't like, this is my jam. Like I was in a book, like Star Trek was the thing that I did on those times when my grandmother was like, get up and go play.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'll move around a little bit, Stay right out. Look at that.
You're reading too long. You were too quiet, right? They would come in and see what you were doing, and you had been reading for hours, and they'd make you go do something.
Yes,
like
right. Like I'm just getting to a good part.
Yeah. Can't even read.
Right. So Star Trek was always there, but during those ages, it wasn't my main go-to thing.
Right.
That wasn't until TNG happened. But even then, it was a book first, but then I had started to branch out into science fiction as well as fantasy. But I was definitely a girl who lived in fantastical worlds.
Yeah.
And I don't blame myself.
I don't blame you either.
Sometimes you have to live in those worlds.
Uh-huh.
You just have to.
Yep. I agree.
So that was mine. So
yeah.
Yvette?
Oh, that's right. So I was the one who wasn't really into this topic, mainly because I could not I just didn't understand it. I think I didn't understand where I fell in this, because I was trying to think what started me in this. Because I never thought of myself as a geek. Until I got older, until I had kids, maybe. That's when. But,
oh no, wait a minute.
Well,
you were talking about those Wonder Woman bracelets you had.
Oh yeah, but I didn't think that was.
But you didn't identify.
I didn't
nobody
identified
Wonder Woman as geeky. None of the
Wonder Woman was not being a geek to me.
No, that in our generation.
I read Wonder Woman my whole life. Everything, I loved Wonder Woman, but I just didn't think that was being a geek, you know. I knew other
Mm.
girls who wanted, maybe not in the way that I wanted to be Wonder Woman, because I wanted to be Wonder Woman. I mean, believe me, I
Actually, be
really, and
Wonder Woman.
yeah, I thought I was gonna have special powers and everything when I got stung by
Okay.
bees, and it was crazy.
Oh,
But I didn't
Oh.
think that was being a geek. I just didn't
Okay.
identify that until I'm like,
I
look,
get it.
when you look back, you're like, yeah, I was kind of crazy. It was kind of
yeah,
Yeah.
about that stuff. But I read comic books my whole life. But all the boys read comic books. I didn't, you know, I was a tomboy. I didn't see myself as any different than them. I did everything they did, fighting, climbing trees, just, you know.
I
So
fell
I
out.
that didn't hit me that way.
Mm.
I
It was
fell out
just,
of a magnolia tree.
yeah,
But go ahead. I
yeah,
fell out.
yeah. I was a wild kid. Um, but you know, that stuff until now, when I look back at it, I'm like, well, I've been doing this forever. But I think the thing that really, it's never been fantasy, it was always been science fiction. When I went to see Star Wars, I was like 9, and it was
Mm.
the last time I ever went to a movie with my parent or parents, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I went with my mother. And I remember I was like 9. I was 9 years old because I had to be. It says it's 77, and I don't. You know, my birthday's way at the end of the year, so I had to be like 9. And just like what you said, all like, you know, I know everybody. All my friends were talking about Luke Skywalker, and all I was talking about was Princess Leia. You know, and she was everything, you know, and it wasn't like I was obsessed with her. It's just I remembered her more than anything.
Uh-huh.
Um and 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 like I was saying before, I have like so many, it kind of died there, and I saw the rest of them, but then my life really changed. My home life got really, really scary, and you know, so that wasn't important, you know.
Mm.
I kind of left it, you know, but then I finally got stable, and I got you guys are talking about a TV in your room. I bought a TV, like I worked this job. I was a lifeguard. I was like 14, I think. Maybe 13. It had to be 14 because you can't work then. But I got a TV in my room, right?
Mm.
And I also
Ooh.
got cable, right? So
Oh,
it wasn't
what
real
cable?
right,
Damn.
right.
You were rolling,
How?
girl.
Oh,
You
you were okay.
Cable?
you were
Well,
rich.
cable really was HBO. And I don't, and
Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
maybe MT. I don't think I got the basic channel. I think it was just HBO. It was cheap, believe me.
Whatever.
Right. So I
right.
got
Cable.
that, and HBO played 2001 Space Odyssey every single day.
They
Oh,
did.
And
I
wow.
I
remember
watched
that.
it
Repeated,
every
repeated.
single day. Like I was
Wow.
obsessed with that thing.
Wow.
And I believe, and then I just and then the space shuttle mission
Oh.
started. And that's what started everything for me. That's when I
Mm,
realized how much I was obsessed with space. And
mm,
it wasn't like the movies, it was like Space Odyssey was there, and that was the movie. But then we were going to space, and that
Mm-hmm.
just, but see, I didn't know I could try to be if I knew that there was a possibility that I could try to be an astronaut, I would have been an astronaut. But that just never, there was a bunch of white guys. I didn't know that
Mm-hmm.
was something I could
mm-hmm.
do. And they were
Mm-hmm.
old. You know, I was
Jobs they
14.
Yeah.
never tell us we can have.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And
That's
so, you know,
right.
I was obsessed with the space show, especially because the first one, you know, it crashed, you know, when it landed in it. So it was a thing. It was like, you know, it was part of our,
It was real time.
it was real
Mm-hmm.
time. People died. It was a, you know, you knew who the people were. It was on TV. You know, we talked about it in class. We talked about it with our friends, you know.
Yep.
And then the next one, I watched it explode on TV in school.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, that was
Wow.
devastating.
That
That
was
was
Well, yeah.
devastating.
absolutely devastating.
Yep.
It changed my whole world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Even now.
Talk about moments that really affected the consciousness of the nation, like the psyche of the whole nation. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
that was one of those pivotal moments that, you know, changed us as Americans.
It really did. We all watched that. Like all of us. Like there's a lot of things we watch happen, like 9/11, but most kids didn't watch that.
Right.
You know, like my children, as you know, I was there when
Right.
that happened. My children, I had two children at the time. My two children were in school, and of course, you know, they did not watch it. No one told them about it. I know the school mate let them come home and let their parents tell them. But when Challenger exploded, we were all watching it because there were
Everybody was
civilians.
right.
There were civilians on the flight. So
And everybody was watching it in all the schools across the
Yeah,
all
country.
the yes,
So
that's what I
I
mean.
was
So
there. We were
that's what I'm
all in
saying.
school.
All the children of our nation were watching that.
Yeah.
So we were
Oh,
all
God.
watching it together.
Mhm.
You know, and yeah, it's still like it's still
Yeah.
heartbreaking, you
It
know.
Yeah.
is.
It's still heartbreaking, but it's what fueled my my love of the future and space and science and just want to know more. Like I was a kid that read the encyclopedia. Like I was
Me
I was a
too.
reader. You know, I read everything. I didn't read fantasy books, but I read everything. I read encyclopedia because we were cool because we had all the letters.
Y'all had the old
All the
set.
All the
letters.
letters.
We had them
they had the
all,
whole
you
set.
know.
Yeah.
And I read through them. I mean, that was my Google, you know,
Okay, wait. I'm
anytime.
sorry. I'm sorry. Let me back up. For those of you all who are younger than us, an encyclopedia is a book of knowledge. That usually the things that you Google were
Right.
all in this sets of books, and you had this all through the letters of the alphabet.
A
You
to
had
Z.
subjects. A was
Oh my
talking about,
gosh.
you
Yeah.
had
Aardvark.
aardvark, animatronics,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
apples,
X
and
was missing though.
it would tell
X
you
was
all
always
the
missing.
We
right.
had them all.
It would tell you
X.
all the things, all the information that you needed to know. Okay.
Exactly.
All
You
right.
did your book
Exactly.
report for me.
That's how
You
I did
did
them
your book
all.
reports. Yep.
That's why I was an A student.
Mhm.
But no, that was it. And it actually, and of course, you know, Star Trek was always there because the people in my family watched it. I did not. As I said before, I did not like Star Trek when I was a kid. So but it was there, you know, it was in the background. So my love of space and science was always going to be there. And but yeah, the space shuttle, you know, even now when I think about it, I know that's what fueled the way I raised my children, you know, just
Mhm.
science and math, knowing that these things are so important to learn, and just, you know, just um being in that moment as a
Yeah.
kid, you know.
Mhm.
I think, you know, it's crazy how we've lived through all of these disasters in our
Yeah.
lifetimes, you know. It's
Yeah.
but
The
yeah,
moon
Space
landing was pretty
Odyssey
good
and
in
Space Odyssey.
69.
What's that?
The moon landing was pretty exciting in
Yeah,
69.
but I was one
I
She was
and a
know, I
one.
half.
Yeah.
understand that, yeah, but
She wasn't
but
even.
I
but but
wasn't
the
but
here
the
nation,
yet.
the nation looked
but
at
the
it.
crazy thing about that, I was one and a half. You know, I was
Okay.
still around, and the
Mm-hmm.
people in my life, like Black people, I
Mm-hmm.
remember them telling the stories. I remember because we had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of family things that happened, and they would talk about the moon
Mm-hmm.
landing and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it's just, you know, and I know I'm assuming that they all watched it together, you know, because that's just what we did, you know, we
Yeah, we
watched
did.
those things
Watch
together.
TV together. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because there was only one
Because there
TV.
was
It was
one
on.
damn TV.
Until I got
Exactly. Everybody watched
until I got a
the
TV
same
in my
shit.
room.
We're
There were
watching the
three
moon landing.
stations.
Oh,
That's right.
There were
mom.
three stations. It
Yeah.
was one TV in the house, and you were
Right.
Mm-hmm.
lucky if you had that one.
Yeah,
That's
I was
right.
only reason I had a TV. I worked really hard that summer because it had to be. I was 14. I worked really hard that summer, and I was doing really well in school. And you know, I had a really before that, life was really bad.
Mhm.
Um, and things were getting better. And my aunt was like, if I was gonna buy it, I could go ahead and buy it, and I could have one in my
Oh,
room.
It's
So
okay.
reward
that was my
TV.
thing. That was my
Yeah,
reward. Yeah, my reward TV. And
I love
it
that.
was, and I guess, you know, that feels you know, that's part of it too. TV, you know, your own TV. I could watch what I wanted to
Hmm.
watch.
Isn't that
Yeah.
something?
Right, and I got to pick 2001: A Space Odyssey. Man, I watched that thing every single day,
The
and it would
bone
come
going up.
on like all the time. Like 2 movies would come on, and then it would come back on, and then it'd be
No.
like 3, maybe the next day it would come out, and I just watched it and watched it. I couldn't get enough of it. I just
There was
loved
no
how
variety on
Dave.
There was no variety on HBO. It just repeated.
No.
You
The
don't worry about
early
missing it.
Especially in
HBO.
the beginning,
It'll be
Mhm.
on again.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yep.
on again.
Yep.
It'll be on
You didn't
again.
have to tape anything.
No.
Oh,
Well, okay, so I guess I'm up, and you've given me a great segue, Yvette, because all right, so I'm about 15 years older than you guys, so my origin into this, you got to remember, I'm the one that loves ship porn, right? I love any kind of ship.
Right.
If it's a ship involved, and it's really, I was thinking about this when we decided this was going to be the topic. And I said, well, my dad worked at the Boston Naval Shipyard. So we talked about ships all the time. We
That
always
makes
yeah.
talked
so
about
much
Now
sense.
that
Oh
really
my
makes sense now.
God.
Now I get it.
whatever ship he was working on, whichever ship was in dock. I've been on the USS, the Nautilus, the first, atomic submarine. We went
Yeah.
down and saw that. I've been
Oh,
on the Wasp. I've been on
man.
aircraft carriers. I've been on, minesweepers. I've been on everything because my father thought I was a boy too. And you get to go down to the Navy Yard and have your life in your hands in this crazy place. But one of the things that really got me was in 1961 when you guys were talking about the moon landing, but I'm talking about when Alan Shepard went up in Freedom 7. I distinctly remember
The
this 'cause
orbit.
we were totally
Wow.
enthralled.
And
People don't
Totally
talk
enthralled.
about that a lot. Like that
No,
gets missed in all the
right.
stories. It was like, oh, we landed on the moon, but
Right.
we often forget the steps
Freedom
that it took
They
to
had to
get
get
us there.
to get there.
Which, and I can always bring it back to Star Trek, is why I love it's been a long road because in Enterprise, they have that clip of
Yeah.
Alan Shepard, and every
Mhm.
time I see it, I cannot skip the intro because I want to give my little kudos to Alan,
Alan.
first American in space Shepard, because I'm like, that's the man. And I remember my dad was so excited. We were just like, oh my God, because you got to remember, I mean, people talk about the Cold War and all this stuff, but we are the kids, Fran, right? We knew where bomb shelters were. We had we had,
like
you
we
had
were gonna hide on
in
that
the
desk,
subway
if
and the
the
roll
bomb
down
went
door.
off, it was gonna
We
protect
thought
us.
for sure the Russians were gonna nuke us. We
Oh,
were
yeah.
we were sure. And our parents had lived through World War II and bombs dropping. So this was a reality. But when Sputnik went up, we were scared to death. You want to talk about the psyche of America?
Yeah.
Freaked the frick out when that went up, and they were like, the Russians are going to go into space and they're going to nuke everybody. They're going to nuke the planet. It's over.
Wow.
They're
And
gonna
so
beat
it
us
was
on everything.
it was a mad race. Everybody was learning math. I remember like kids were getting slide rulers. Everybody was like, who's the one that's going to figure out how to get to the moon? It was another sister. It wasn't me. It was another sister, but it was a sister.
Yep.
So
Was.
that was so important. And I remember watching this whole thing with my dad in 61. And that was what's really started it with those Mercury 7 astronauts. Not, I know the Apollo astronaut, I know the Gemini, but the Mercury 7, man, because
Mercury.
that was like this. Oh, we didn't know what was going to happen. We thought for sure that thing was going to go. And then right after that came the crazy show that I love that these guys think is just so ridiculous. And it was this crazy British show that had these marionettes. And there were three different shows. It was Fireball XL5, it was Thunderbirds Are Go, and it was Stingray. And these shows were incredible. Now, Thunderbird Go was my show because it had all kinds of ships. They were the International Rescue. They had a base on a private island in the South Pacific, and they had rocket ships and a base station, and they had this cargo thing. And I mean, they had all kinds of freaking hardware. And if anything blew up around the world, they went and saved them.
All right, so this is being told by marionettes.
Oh,
yes, the whole freaking story. Marionettes.
What did the ships look like? Were those on wires too?
Yeah. Oh, the whole
my
thing
God.
was,
wow.
It was incredible.
So it was like Punch and Judy goes to space.
Oh, no. These marionettes. Okay, let
The bottom
me just
lip
be
was
clear.
the only thing that moved when they talked.
Oh my God.
They were electronic, and their mouths were actually I don't know how they did it, but they matched the dialogue that people would pre-tape.
Mhm.
These marionettes were not so like stuck with cotton or anything. These guys were pretty intense, but the sets were crazy. The ships were to die for, and I mean, it was like Steve Tracy and the Tracy boys. There were 5 Tracy boys, and they were all named after the Mercury 7 astronaut. Let
Oh,
me just
wow.
connect the
Oh,
dots
wow.
for you. It was
Okay.
Scott and Alan and Virgil. And I was like, yes. Virgil flew the big ship that I liked the best. Okay, that was the one.
Virgil
Virgil.
Gus Grissom.
So this show was crazy, and I loved it. And I want to bring it back to Star Trek even more so. And you're all gonna go, what? So they made a live action of Thunderbirds Are Go, and it was directed by the one and only Jonathan Frakes.
What?
What? When did this happen?
2010, Mr. Frakes loved Thunderbirds Are Go as much as Subrina does.
Oh my gosh.
I did not know
Wow.
that until I was researching this stuff today. And I was like,
Don't you wish
Jonathan,
we had known that when we talked to him the other night?
I would have been embarrassed. I could not have even talked to him about the marionette and super
Oh.
marionation.
That was a
No, I could
mess.
not have. But Thunderbirds Are Go. That was my show. It was my show for sure. And then that came out in 66. And then right after that, it was Star Trek. So I did read the books, like I was saying to you. I did read Wrinkle in Time. I was reading all of that stuff. But it was more so, my dad, he loved all kinds of mechanics. I mean, I come from a family of engineers. My dad, Army engineer, my brother, Army engineer, my grandfather, civil engineer. I wanted to be an engineer myself, but like you were saying, Yvette, if I thought I could be an astronaut, I thought I could be an astronaut. So I went into Civil Air Patrol. I was a geek, totally. And then I had bad ears and bad eyes, so I could not go, and it was heartbreaking that I was not going to go because I took astronomy at MIT. I did all this geek stuff. It was just
Wow.
unbelievable. And I
Wow.
was physics engineering going into college, and then I discovered boys and flunked out of school. But it's a long story. But I got back in school. But I
Damn
think
boys.
it was those
Damn
daggone
boys. I know it's like you're like
pillows.
it's a
Still
long
love 'em.
story. I'm like, it's a
Still
common
love 'em.
story.
Yeah, it's another story. It's another story. I ended up being an accountant. I still get the numbers going. Don't worry
There you
about it.
go.
There you
Okay.
go. But
Computer,
yeah,
your
it was like the
computer, you?
ships and and we were talking about Black people watching all of this space race and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And I was saying to you guys a little earlier in the week, one of the first times, every time you ever saw people watching the astronauts or watching the ships go up or watching anything like that, it was always, the school kids were watching. It was all white kids. It was like everybody watching. It was all white kids.
Mhm.
And the first time I ever saw a depiction of Black people being totally mesmerized and watching the space race, which we all did,
Mhm.
was when we saw Hidden Figures.
Oh,
Mhm.
And it was that scene, and I didn't understand why that scene always hit me until we were talking about it the other day. And it's the scene where something is wrong or something. Yeah, they were holding the flight,
yeah.
and everybody was running to the TVs. And people that didn't have TVs, as we were saying,
Yep.
maybe they were just out in the street. They ran to the TV store and they were
Mhm.
watching it through the window. And
Yep.
that was the first time I ever saw a depiction of Black people concerned about the space race and involved in it. And I love that scene so much. I love that movie so much
Oh,
because,
love
my
that
dad
movie.
and I watched every single one. I remember I had models. I built a lamb. I mean, I was that kid. If there was something to send away for, if you had to cut up some box top, we were eating cornflakes and sending them box tops.
Yeah.
Eat the cornflakes. Eat the cornflakes.
Yep. They did the same thing for
Yeah,
the
whatever.
shuttles.
Mhm.
It was all the Kellogg's or I think it was
Oh,
all the Kellogg's
man.
box here. You got a little model of
I
Columbia or
I've got 'em.
Challenger or something. Yeah.
Got that
Oh
too.
yeah.
Oh, the
I
day they
remember.
flew that shuttle over here to DC, they were going to bring it to
Oh
the
yeah.
museum. And we
Mhm.
were all standing on top of rooftops waving at the thing. They were waving at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What time is
Oh.
it coming?
Right.
Oh my God. If you have not
Exactly.
been to the Air and Space Museum to see the shuttle, it's something you really need to do.
Yeah,
I've
It's
that is
seen.
really
Yeah,
cool.
I went to
Actually.
the Air and Space
yeah,
Museum.
it's a great
Yeah,
time.
it's a
So,
great
It's
time.
so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
my
The
Aunt
Air and
used to work.
Space Museum is awesome.
It
Oh
is.
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
So that was
It's one of my
me.
favorites.
That's
Yeah.
how, from Dad to Alan Shepard and on to, Thunderbirds and to Jonathan Frakes and Star Trek. So, always get it back to Star Trek.
Always.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
still have no idea what those shows are, but I guess I'll go look them up now
It's
Yeah,
because
it's
I
so
need
it's
to see the
cheesy. You're gonna.
somewhere.
I
I
mean,
need I need to see the marionettes.
mm-mm.
it's
Y'all,
it's
if you
the.
could see
And I'm
I was
Yvette's
pretty
just
face
sure
right
watching
now.
one
I'm
to get
pretty
ready
sure
for this
only
show, and I mean, I was in hysterics. I was in hysterics, but the imagination of the people who built those sets,
Yeah.
I had to take my hat off to them. They had supersonic airplanes. They had, they had all these things in it that were going to come true. And this was 66.
mm-hmm.
And it was the
Wow.
British, which was very bizarre. Oh, and Lady Penelope in this has a pink Rolls Royce. I just want to say.
Okay,
I
all
was
right.
done. I was done.
That's
Stop the
That was
madness and call
straight.
the
she was a
She
law.
worked
spy.
she worked for Mary Kay.
No, she worked
Was she
for.
pimping it up? I mean, like,
We
because
didn't
that
know
sounds
what, like she was like
pimpalicious.
worked for M5 or something, whatever.
They're
But I didn't know
pimpalicious.
that I was so inspired even back then to get a pink car. I mean, Lady Penelope.
Okay.
If you don't
I'm gonna
know
just let you
Thunderbirds
have
I
that one.
go,
I'm just
come
gonna let you
on.
have that pink
Jamal,
Rolls
I know you're listening, Jamal. Back me up on this, my brother.
You had
Sabrina,
a
didn't the marionette's mouth only the bottom lip move, right? The top lip
Yes.
didn't move, only the bottom lip moved, and they some kind of synced it all together, but it still was creepy looking.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it
y'all,
was.
if you could see the looks on this screen right now, especially from Yvette, who is
That's,
like marionettes, I'm out.
Mm-mm.
listen,
Nope.
you asked what the
Yeah,
geek
Nope.
origin story was.
Snagglepuss.
I'm just trying to tell you what the geek origin story was. I still have a
I
poster on
love
my
it.
wall at this age that says Thunderbirds are go.
Ooh.
Fran,
I
please
love
save me. What?
Okay, okay. I remember all that. I'm gonna get kind of get Star Trek, if it's such a thing, out of the way. I looked at Star Trek not for the sci-fi. I looked at Star Trek for Miss Nichols.
Right.
That's why I
Mm-hmm.
looked at Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't I didn't realize it was sci-fi. I mean, kind of knew it, but it was she
Mhm.
who was a beacon for me to look at the original Star Trek when I was a girl, because that's
Hmm.
when it came out when I was a girl. My favorite, and I read as a child, but it was no sci-fi, no fantasy. It was just books. The first time I remember, which has nothing to do with science fiction, the first book I actually saw myself in was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Mm.
I saw
Mm-hmm.
myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this happened like, me and my brother, they had a scene in there where her and her brother was acting up, cutting up in church. And me and my brother, well, not my brother, but me, I cut up and caused him to cut up. So yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
my first TV show that I liked was The Time Tunnel
Y'all, hold up. Hold
with
up.
James Darren
She is so
and Lee
sedate.
Merriweather.
Oh my God, y'all.
There was
It's
a
a lie.
woman.
It's a lie.
It was a
Fran, say it
woman.
right.
That is
It was
not the
a
way you
woman.
said it
That's not the
before.
way she said. She's
It was
trying
a
to ignore us
woman.
and she's trying to keep talking. But I'm gonna
Trying
tell
to
the
keep
real
talking.
story. When we started talking about this the other day, we're all like blah 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 blah. Okay, well let's talk about this story. Figures. We were all like, oh my God.
What the hell
When
is
What
that?
time
she's yelling at
tunnel?
us, she's yelling at us over the Zoom. Time tunnel. And we're all scared, ducking, like, what the fuck, Fran? You
Time
know?
tunnel. Because it was
She
every
was so
week.
excited. Now
Every
she's all
week.
calm and cool.
They kind of, it's this black and white thing, and they would like be going in different places, and it was so dramatic how they had the people like almost falling into the thing and everything. But what drew me to that was there was a woman scientist on that show. Her name in real life was Lee Merriweather. I can't remember
Yay.
her character's name, but she was a scientist. And she didn't, she was smart, and she looked at the computer, big computers and stuff, and she gave her piece in it and everything, and they listened to her, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's a woman scientist, and I loved it. My next show
When did time
was
before you what when did
Mhm.
Time Tunnel come on? Like what year was that?
Time
66.
Tunnel came on in
66.
1966.
66.
Same
Oh.
year as Thunderbirds Are Go.
Like saying that title.
He loves it. He loves it.
You wish you were Thunderbirds Are Go.
And Time Tunnel.
Time Tunnel.
I'm telling you, boy, mid
See?
60s was
I
the
told
time.
y'all it was gonna come out.
That's right. That's right. My
Man, when they would
next
go in there,
show.
Fran, like, you remember it would spark? Like they would go in that tunnel and the
Yeah,
sparks
and
would
it
go off
always
and
was sparks
they would
and
twist it and they
smoke.
would smoke. Yeah, smoke would come out. You were like,
Smoke.
Lord Jesus, what is happening?
Don't forget that where they gonna land at now and how they gonna save
So
such
was
and
it
such.
like a quantum leap type
Yeah.
of situation?
Sort of, yeah.
Every
Okay.
week they landed in
And they
some
kept trying to
horrible
get these
place.
people back and they could never get them back.
Right,
It only lasted one season.
Oh wow.
Well, it was
that was
only
a
one
great
season.
season. Well,
It was
because
a great season though.
the whole premise was they were going to close the experiment down. The army was going to close it down, and then Tony, played by James Darren, who was in James Darren was in this. He was in the time tunnel. He
Always
went
comes
and
back.
ran in there like, okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna run in the tunnel before you close it down. He runs in the tunnel and
then
it sparks, smoke. They can't get his ass back, and then they have to send the other professor in there.
After him.
Yes, and they can't get him back.
Can't get him back. So they both asses all lost every damn where every year. Every time you
And
turn
Lee
around.
Merriweather was turning dials. She was
smoke and sparks galore.
right. And she had a crush
dials.
on the guy that went in second. Like, yeah, he was,
what was it, James Corbett, I think his name was.
Yeah.
See, I remember.
And
My
they were
other
just-
show was
Oh,
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
that was the other show.
Submarine.
That one I've actually seen reruns of.
It would get faster and faster.
I loved it.
Oh my God, you're killing me.
I loved it. Because that submarine, dive.
Man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Man, it was something else, y'all. And I was that little girl that would sit there and look at Boys to the Bottom of the Sea and
You do a great sonar imitation.
Really
know,
does.
it's
She
really
really
good.
does.
Yes.
My father and I used to watch. That was 64.
Was that okay?
Voyage to the
Okay.
Bottom of the Sea.
Okay.
And my dad used to watch that. He would just go ballistic because he could not understand the glass in the. He goes, "Oh God
at the
damn
front,
it! They had that much glass in the state. You know that." He was
Yeah,
giving
they
you
did
all
have
the
a glass
Boston Naval
windshield.
Shipyard
They
reasons
did.
why that glass was gonna pop. I was
They
like, "No,
had a
Dad, it's to
glass
deceive you. You don't understand." And he's like, "No, baby girl, you don't understand. That ship ain't never gonna." But we would watch it anyway. Wait for the giant squid to
of course,
come.
for the glass to crack. Go.
Sometimes didn't it once or twice?
Okay. And honorable mention, y'all, the Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah.
Still good.
Love
Still
the
good to this
Twilight
day.
Zone.
Yep.
Isn't it? I'll still
Yep.
look at, and
I
that
watched it an
actually
hour
was
ago.
in black and white.
And we all watched
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, you
So-
talk about some good writing on that
Yeah.
show.
I
That was like,
know.
and then, so many of those scripts came from short stories. And,
Mhm,
that was
mhm.
just like when, literature ruled a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit more than it does now,
Mhm.
but
Earl
I mean, that's how
Hamner.
it was tight. Like the stories that stand the test of time.
They
There's still
do.
amazing stories today, and
They
they're
do.
literally timeless,
Yeah.
And you look at it, and I didn't know it back then, but my favorite, I'll say my favorite episode is the one, Eye of the Beholder. Where this
The one with
lady
the woman who's gets the plastic surgery because
tries
she's
to,
so
yeah,
ugly and,
yeah.
and they
They
consider her so ugly.
actually but they couldn't do they kept saying they couldn't do the plastic surgery
Right.
because of her bone structure.
Her bone
But
structure,
yeah,
right?
but if you look at the whole thing, it was all about conformity and segregation. Because he says, well, we have a place. If it doesn't come out this time, 11 times, you can't do it anymore. You can go to a place where people who look like you, he actually says those words, you all live together. She said, you mean segregated? She said, oh, you want to send me to a ghetto with people that look like me?
Wow.
And he was like, But I didn't realize this at the time. But if you look at that story has so many deep layers to it.
Mm.
Rod Serling was just such a genius. He talked about the Vietnam War, all
Mhm.
this stuff. He did all this stuff. But the traveling, the science, the sci-fi, and the episode with Agnes Moorehead, and when she
No.
when she tore up those little astronauts that came from Earth, and
I don't
she
remember
just,
that episode.
Mm-mm.
oh yeah, she didn't say a word in the episode. She
Mm.
didn't say not one word.
Oh, wow.
However, she was a giant compared, because the little spaceship came from Earth.
Oh,
She
I
killed
think
them
I
all
did. I
anyway.
did see that. Yeah, I
I don't
Yeah.
remember that
remember that.
one.
But the one that you were
Yeah.
talking, the one that you started talking about, what's the name of it again? The
Which
Eye of the
Eye of the
your
Beholder.
Eye
Beholder.
of the Beholder. I remember seeing that when I was super young. I was
Mm-hmm.
way too young to see that episode. It scarred me. I mean, I think I was like 7 or 8,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
something like that. And I had a television in my room at my
Ooh.
grandmother's house, at my
Okay.
grandparents'
Okay.
house.
Grandparents. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You
That by that point, I mean,
youngsters.
this we're talking about in the 70s now. Like
Mhm.
there were
Mm-hmm.
multiple televisions in the
Oh yeah,
house at
that's
that
right.
Mhm.
time.
70s.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Right.
yeah, and it was a little black and white TV up in the corner in the
Mm-hmm.
room, and they were like, "Are you going to bed? Were you watching that show? You always get scared when you watch that show." I'm like, "I'm fine. I can watch it. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay." And it scared when they showed that woman's face at the end. They showed all the other people's faces. It
Mm-hmm.
scared me so bad, and I
Mhm.
went tired, tearing down the hall to their room, like, "I'm coming in and getting in bed with you." They were like, "What is the matter?" I was like, "So scary." They were
Oh.
like, "Okay, you coming in here for 5 minutes and then you're getting back
And
in your
then you
own
get.
bed."
Mm-hmm. Because you didn't realize you didn't see the other people until the end of the
Yeah.
Until the end of that
end of
episode.
episode,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
Right.
But they
like
were
you said,
always in shadow.
everything else you said about that episode is so true. That's one of my all-time favorite episodes of that show as well.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good one.
It really
Doing what
is.
science fiction does best.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does. As
Mhm.
they say,
That's
it's all back to Star Trek. They tell the times. They do it in science fiction and fantasy, but they tell what's going on at the time.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Vietnam, segregation, ghettos,
Right.
all that stuff. You could write about it in science fiction and sneak it on in there. Gene Roddenberry did it
Oh
well.
yeah.
Yep.
He
Yeah.
You
did.
know, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
I
You
mean,
know,
that's one of the reasons. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fran. I'm
no, go
sorry.
ahead. I'm
But
done. Go ahead.
that's one of the reasons why, like, the Mists of Avalon always stands out in my head because it was some of the first feminist literature that I had
Mm-hmm.
read,
Mm-hmm.
ever. And that was squarely of the times,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you think about it, it was published in 82, so she was writing it in the 70s,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and, so absolutely, it was in conversation with what was going on in the country, in the world at that
Mm-hmm.
time. Yeah.
And I'm wondering why my coworker gave me this book. Because y'all know I had a big mouth at work. I've never changed. Nothing's changed. And I would talk about stuff. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, Fran, I
mm.
got a book I need for you to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, let me, give me the book. I'll read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I've never read anything like this.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I want to
I
read it
hadn't.
again.
Hmm.
I
I
know,
feel
me
like I want to
too.
read it
I
again. It's been so
know.
long since I
I
read it.
was
Mhm.
going through like reading like refreshing and reading a summary, and there was like this really
Mhm.
detailed summary that I found, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's right, that did happen."
Yeah.
And oh
Mhm.
yeah, I forgot she did feel like that. And oh my
Maybe
God,
we should
and we
put it
were
up for
just on
book club.
chapter 1,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh my
Oh,
God,
it was
I
a
really
big, thick book
it's
too.
a
It
thick
was,
ass
Yeah.
book,
yeah.
Yes.
it's a tome,
Oh
you
wow.
Yes.
know."
Oh no.
But I mean, it's so like I was like, yeah, I do need to go back and read this again. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to be, and I wonder, it would be great reading it again and wondering if it's still standing the test of time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Mhm.
She
if my
had some
53
controversy,
year
the
old
author
self,
herself.
I saw that. I never knew that until I looked that up, and I'm not going to mention it here. And if you
Yeah,
care about
it's
it, you can
so
go
we
look
talked.
it up. It
Yeah,
was
it's
hard.
like
It was
I'm gonna
hard to
just
see
read the
that.
book. Yeah, it
It's
was
just
really
read
hard
like
to
the
see it.
book is the book, and
The book,
it's nothing along the it's
but it would be
just
great to read it
read the
now,
book and
knowing what
enjoy
we
the book.
know,
Yeah, I
knowing what we know.
enjoyed it, and I was
Well, I mean, it
by
was
then I was a grown woman, so.
Yeah. You
yeah.
know, another thing is I want to go back to Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea only because
Doop, doop, doop,
it was,
doop, doop.
it was originally a movie. We were talking about stories that they tell and what they're things of the time. This was ahead of its time in 1961 when the original movie came out. I don't know if you remember. Did you ever go see it? I saw this in the movie theater.
No, I know.
No, it's a great one. If you have not
A
seen
Voice
the
to the Bottom of
original
the Sea, the movie,
Voyage to the Bottom of
yeah.
the Sea, the movie, it was about global warming.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, the
Oh.
Seaview had to go to the North Pole to shoot off the missile at a certain time, and it was going to bring the rain because everybody was hot, everybody was sweating, like everybody was burning up. And I hadn't seen the movie in so long. And then when I watched it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they show it a lot now. I was like, boy, this movie is really on point.
Mm-hmm.
How did they
Mm-hmm.
get this like
Wow.
50 years before we were talking about all of this? It was a lucky guess. I mean, what was it? But
No,
if you have not seen Voyage to the Bottom
there's
of the Sea in any years, take a look at it now.
people interested in science
Mhm.
doing what we do
Yeah.
and
Yep.
forecasting.
They were
But,
talking about global warming for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, this
You
one
know,
really gets
most
you.
disaster movies, there's a scientist at the beginning of the movie. We all know this, telling these people
Right.
what the
Don't
freak
do
is
this.
gonna happen.
This is gonna mess some shit up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they
But we wouldn't
get
have a
too
good
hard.
movie if anybody
If
listened to
you
sense.
know, be
Right,
like, oh,
right.
let's do this, and the movie will be off.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, even in this movie, they were fighting so hard. Like the different scientific factions didn't agree with what to do, but there was only one shot at saving the Earth.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the Seaview just said, you know what, we're just going. Okay. I don't know if
That's
you
right. That
try
was the
catch me
name
if
of
you
this.
can, but I know you can't.
It's just one of the things that I love about science fiction and fantasy is the fact that we can address these issues that we have through a different lens, like and it's always, well, trying to never mind. That's what I was going to say. I had to stop myself because it wasn't going to make sense.
Well, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea also has a Star Trek connection, a deep Star Trek connection.
What's
So
that?
does
Michael Asara is in it. He plays Khan. No,
Oh,
Kang.
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 Yeah, Kang is
Yeah, he
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 plays
plays
is
Kang.
I
Kang.
remember,
He is
yeah.
in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea,
Yeah.
the movie.
Okay.
And you know what? I was thinking about when you guys talking about connections to Star Trek. 2001 Space Odyssey reminds me a lot of Deep Space Nine with the space alien. Well, they weren't really space aliens. Like he became like this. Like Star Trek always like your next step as humans is this non-corporeal life form.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's in there all the
all
time.
the
Yep. We're
time. And
just energy.
just energy, and
Yeah.
I would definitely was. I'm actually gonna watch that again probably
I
tonight
just
before I go to
I
we're gonna
know,
do a
bed.
it's
lot
like
of rewatching and rereading here.
Right,
yeah,
right.
I mean that's the fun of like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take a trip down memory lane. It's like
Mhm.
well also what I found too that's been really cool for me. I don't know about for you guys, but when you were talking about like you all look like little kids here, like to be able to touch that little girl's heart again, that's just like and the wonder that felt that's cool. And that makes me excited.
Hey, I was
Yeah.
just cheering for the Thunderbirds this afternoon. I was watching it.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah. Those are nice, uncomplicated times.
They
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
were
there was a
times.
definite good guy and a definite bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Yep. And the
Always.
hero always saved the day.
Of
Yeah.
course. And no one dies. They almost die.
Right.
Yeah.
But
They
in the
get
kids shows, they don't die.
no.
No. Well,
Oh, they died in
I
our
don't know.
kid shows.
I was about to say, speak for your generation, because by the time they got to us, they were dying left and right.
Ooh,
They didn't die in our stores.
no.
They kind of got hit in the shoulder and grabbed the shoulder. You knew they
Yeah.
wasn't dying.
Yeah.
No,
You know.
Well,
they was dying
And I
in our
haven't
story.
admitted yet. Somebody told me I had a partner that told me that I was a geek. And I'm like, I'm not no geek. I don't know what the hell you talking about. I'm not a geek. And I wouldn't acknowledge what she said. And then I said, then I had to realize, yeah, shit, I've been a geek since I can remember.
mhm.
Well, I think that too is a generational thing. I mean, like, it wasn't until I became an adult that people started to embrace the label,
Mhm.
the
Mm-hmm,
title of geek.
mm-hmm.
When all of us were growing up, it was not
Not
cool to be a
cool.
geek.
No, it has such negative connotations.
Now geeks rule the world.
Yeah, they do.
They always
Quite
did.
quite literally,
They always
Yep.
did.
you know.
They
Well,
just
not to
We
the
never,
just
extent that they're ruling it now, I don't
well,
think.
because
We
of
were in the
technology and
closet.
Right,
everything.
that's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But like, like nobody wanted to be, I didn't want nobody called me a nerd or a geek or like, that those were fighting words.
even
Yeah.
Mhm.
bookworm was it wasn't a happy thing they were calling you that.
Hmm.
Right, right.
They were making
Mhm.
It
fun
was
of you.
teasing
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah, they were
Oh,
making
yeah.
fun of you. Yep.
Oh, you're
Hmm.
such a
Especially, well,
bookworm.
especially, where I grew up, I grew up in the projects, and going to the library was
Mhm.
it was my safe haven,
Hmm.
it's like the
Mhm.
place that I got
Mhm.
some peace.
Mm.
And it wasn't
Mhm.
peace where, I was being abused or anything like that. It was peace from I wanted to be me, and
Yeah, right.
that was my
Mhm.
safe place. Maybe that's
Mhm.
not the right word, but that was the place where I went into the library and I was like, oh, I can
Hmm.
go in
Yeah.
here and just read what I want to read. And I loved history. Like I said, I loved
Mhm.
the
Hmm.
encyclopedia. I really loved the
Yeah, like you just
encyclopedia a
read
lot.
what you want to
You just
read.
read what you want to
Mhm.
read. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And there was nothing like finding books that, you're just looking all over. And like my main library was the Boston Public Library, Copley Square Library, which is a famous library.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it's gorgeous. It's old and gorgeous. And my favorite room was the old newspaper room where they used to have the
Hmm.
newspapers on the
On the
rolls,
On
right?
the
Oh,
rolls, yep.
yeah.
And they had the big
mhm.
chairs. Like you would
Yep.
take the books from the kids section and they wouldn't bother you. You could
Nope.
go in there and read the book, and as
Hmm.
long as you were quiet.
Yep.
And I would go in there and just sit in among all these old leather chairs and the
I
green
know.
lamp tables, the lamps on the tables, and
Hmm.
kind of looked like my other favorite library, Library of Congress here in DC.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love
Oh
that
my
building. If you
God.
have not gone to the Library of
So
Congress,
y'all, please come visit the Library of
I would
Congress.
probably
it's
pass
It's
out.
beautiful.
so amazing.
I would pass
Uh,
out.
you've seen it in a lot of
The
movies.
Oh
It's been
yeah.
smell,
blown
the
up.
Hmm.
It's
smell
been
of
all kinds
old
of things
books.
happening there, but not really. But it's a gorgeous place, yes. And artwork, the statues, just the rooms involved. It's the history of it, and they have a great movie series that they show great films there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
you can get on the newsletter,
Hmm.
and they will tell you if you're in this area, if you're in the DMV, you need to get on the newsletter and take a trip over to the Library of Congress. It is your library.
Oh,
It
that's
is. It's the
right.
Um,
People's
Mhm.
Library.
It
yeah.
Yep.
is.
Mhm.
We have the same
Hmm.
thing in New York Public Library that's
Oh,
in
Hmm.
Manhattan. It
Yeah,
is
it's beautiful. It's amazing, right?
absolutely
I have
amazing.
visited
And
that
they have
just
a
to sit
movie
in it.
series also. And they had this, I didn't, I guess I forgot about it because I don't have a New York City library card
Library card.
anymore because I don't live in New York City anymore. I haven't lived in New York City in quite some time, but I have the Westchester County, my town or whatever. But during the pandemic, everybody was if you lived in New York, you could go to all the libraries were online anyway. So they had
Mhm.
movie
Yes.
series, they had virtual everything. It was
They have
just
speaker series.
right. It was just
Yeah.
great to go back to the libraries again,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and I totally forgot how great, how much I loved going to library as a kid, because I
Yeah.
went to the
Mhm.
Edenwald Public Library. And it was a little dinky little library. It was one floor. It wasn't, it wasn't nothing, it was nothing famous about. It was just
Yeah.
this building that I went
Mhm.
to that when you walked in, everybody said, they were like,
Mhm.
hey, they knew my name and that type of thing. My books were always late,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
So that's one reason why, like, I actually stopped going to the library here
mhm.
in DC.
uh-oh.
Oh, yeah,
Uh-oh.
because I was like, I would end up stealing books.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
they would
okay.
just
Yeah.
become permanent fixtures in my book collection.
Mhm.
And like, I mean, like I remember at one point I had like this huge fine racked up. Like here in DC, I had to
He's
pay
a
that sucker.
fugitive.
Yeah.
I had to pay that sucker. I mean, that's when I realized that like I don't need to go borrow books. I need to own them.
Buy
Go
book.
ahead,
I
bye.
buy books and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
and I was like, okay, so the book thing is like a lot more serious. But libraries were for, they were part of my development though. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I
Mhm.
remember that there was a
Mhm.
small library in DC that I spent a lot of time
hmm
in Woodley Park. And I would spend a lot of time at the Woodley Park Library when I was younger. But, once I realized that I didn't give books back,
Yeah.
then I stopped
Mhm.
going to libraries
you want to
because
keep the
I was now a danger to the library.
But you know
So,
what? A
because
library.
I refuse to give books back. I mean, like once I choose them, they're mine,
Wow.
and then so when I
Supposed to
moved,
share.
oh no, 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 no,
No,
no,
no.
sweetheart. No, I actually had I used to have designs on having this huge science fiction and fantasy collection that I could then open up as a lending library to
Ooh.
people. But I quickly squashed that idea
Yeah.
because people don't treat books well.
They
And
don't.
like if you don't treat my books as good as I treat my books,
Mhm.
then you were never allowed to touch
You
my
don't get
books.
them.
Yeah.
Like you will never
Yeah.
get those books. But I had like certain books, especially like while I was a sales rep, I had like a lot of galley copies of books
hmm
and that stuff. And I had like a lot of mass markets and stuff. But some of my mass markets that are some of my favorite books ever, like they're out of print now.
Yeah.
Oh.
And like,
Yeah.
so I don't want anybody touching those either. I would love for them to be able to read it, but like I said, like people, I look at collectors and people who collect all this stuff, like Star Trek stuff or like stuff from any other franchise, and I'm like, I only understand you because of books,
hmm
because
Mhm.
I'm the same way with books, and like I really had to like when I moved, it was devastating to downsize.
Oh
And I
my
Oh, to
had to
get rid of
gosh.
books. To
downsize.
get rid of books. It's
Get
just
rid of,
I
oh my
lived in an
gosh.
apartment
oh,
in a one
look
bedroom,
at our
like in a row
faces.
house basement apartment, right? Like in DC, it was a beautiful brick row house. It's a shotgun apartment. So straight from the back from the front to the back, the
Hmm.
basement, literally one whole wall of that entire place of this beautiful was bookshelves, all the way
Mm,
from the front door to the back door. And I had them full, plus I had books in other places. Like it was a lot. It was a
Hmm.
lot.
do
But yeah.
you have like double
But you know,
books? Like you got the books in the back and then books another set of books in front of it because the bookshelf is too.
but
Can't get-
as a child, as a girl, as a teenager, having a library card was like gold. It was worth
Mm,
more than money.
Mm.
I just, I could just go in and show this card because actually our library cards were gold, like yellow gold, but they were
mm.
gold. And it was just my place that I felt safe too, Yvette. And for different reasons than you, I needed to be feel safe in books in libraries and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I needed that to take me away from where I was.
Mm.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
my mother felt that we were safe leaving us there. She would, she knew we
Yeah.
were safe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have people taking care of us after school, and we
Mm-hmm.
got out at 2:30. She didn't get home until 6,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and she would come from Mass General where she worked and pick us up at Copley Square, and then we'd walk home together, and we would tell her all about the books we read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, I just want to say thank you for, being willing to go down memory lane. And it's so cool to hear all you guys' stories and the things that stood out to you and meant something to you and sparked your little geek hearts, whether we wanted to call ourselves geeks or not at the
Yeah.
time. Like we know what we are now,
Yeah.
Huge, big geeks.
Huge, capital G.
So thanks for going down memory lane. And Yvette, if people want to tell us, their little geek origin stories,
Please.
yeah, please do. We'd like to hear them. We really would. Like, where can they do that?
You can find us at sci-fi sistas.com. That's SYFYSISTAS.com. Join us on the mothership. That's MUTHASHIP. And the Sci-Fi Sisters Book Club, both on Facebook. On Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, sci-fi.sisters. And we are also on that platform formerly known as Twitter, at Sci-Fi Sisters. For more interviews and our infamous Top 10 series, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Sci-Fi Sisters Inc. Become a patron of Sci-Fi Sisters today at patreon.com/Sci-Fi Sisters. The Trek Geeks Network's presenting sponsor is Fansets. Go to fansets.com for pins and memorabilia from all your favorite franchises. Visit fansets.com and use Trek Geeks, all caps, for your exclusive 10% discount. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
And of course, I would be totally remiss if I didn't thank, we got 3 associate producers to thank on this show. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Thank you, guys. We're going to thank Sailor Marge, Karen Dramera, and Stephanie Baker. Excuse me, I said Banker. Stephanie Baker. We want to thank you guys for your support so much. It means the world to us. And we got to thank the baddest engineer in any and all known universes. That's Dose the Anonymous One, who's responsible for all the music you hear on our show, as well as engineering. If you need him for music or engineering skills, hit him up on IG at dose_the_anonymous_1. That's the number 1, folks. And that's it for us. We are out of here. We love you guys. Peace, love, and hair grease.